Before New York became the world's leading metropolis, there was a little-known history. When a commoner's house caught fire, the city's police and firefighters would eagerly rush to the scene. The homeowner, touched to tears, soon realized that these individuals weren't there to extinguish the flames but to take advantage of the situation. This led to a confrontation over resources, escalating into a violent conflict. The citizens' grievances against the government grew louder, prompting the intervention of the law to hang the disobedient criminals, temporarily quelling the people's anger. Crimes such as theft, kidnapping, robbery, murder, and arson occurred daily, perpetuating injustices. Unable to resist, many chose to join the fray, turning everyone into gang members. Irish immigrants formed the Dead Rabbits, while Indian, Japanese, and Shanghai immigrants established their own factions. At one point, the number of gangs in New York soared to hundreds. However, one gang, the long-standing and dominant natives, sought to drive out all immigrant gangs. To secure their presence, immigrant gangs had to unite to defeat the natives and seize control of the Five Points neighborhood in New York. The Dead Rabbits leader, a priest with a deep concern for his Irish brethren, took up the flag and rallied all the gangs for a final showdown with the natives. In this chaotic scene, there were no extras paid to participate. Everyone fought to the death, embodying a chivalrous spirit. Using only cold weapons, in the snow-covered battlefield, the clash resembled a hellish demon battle, with each strike gradually consuming humanity. Most tragically, the film's story is not fiction but adapted from the real 19th century New York, a place where immigrants pursued the American dream. Sadly, the priest met his demise at the hands of the natives' leader, Butcher, signaling Butcher's complete control over the 5 Points. The priest's son witnessed his father's death firsthand. At just 8 years old, he inherited his father's courage, breaking free from the crowd to bury his father's honored dagger and medal in a cellar. 16 years later, Valen completed his religious training at the monastery. Stepping out of the monastery's gates, he immediately discarded the Bible. Despite 16 years of mercy and transformation, the hatred in his heart remained unshaken. He decisively returned to the cellar where he dug out his father's dagger and medal, determined to kill Butcher and avenge his father. At that moment, 2 young men attempted to rob him, but he swiftly outmaneuvered them. To his surprise, one of them turned out to be his childhood friend.
You're the priest's son, aren't you?
According to Johnny, since the priest's death, all gangs had submitted to Butcher's natives. Those who were once the priest's right-hand men had either become Butcher's henchmen or transformed into corrupt police officers, forgetting the priest's mission to protect their brethren. From then on, the Dead Rabbits ceased to exist in the 5 Points. People had to pay protection fees to Butcher for every job they did. The government and the underworld colluded, making Butcher a true local tyrant. Faced with such a powerful and ruthless enemy, Valen, a young man struggling to make ends meet, pondered how to seek revenge. At this moment, a Chinese gang, also despising the natives, offered their assistance. It was rumored that Butcher held an annual memorial for the priest at a Chinese mahjong parlor, claiming the priest was the only person he respected. This would be the best opportunity to catch Butcher off guard. To get close to Butcher, Valen decided to join the natives. He persuaded Johnny to recommend him during a tribute, and Butcher readily provided them with a chance to prove themselves by robbing a Portuguese fishing boat anchored nearby that night. Under the cover of darkness and high winds, they boarded the fishing boat, only to find it had already been looted by other gangs. Returning empty-handed would jeopardize Valen's revenge plan. Fortunately, a patrolman appeared, was swiftly killed by one of his companions, and the rest retreated. Valen, however, dragged the body onto the boat and sold it to medical researchers, though it only fetched $15. This act showcased Valen's cunning and bravery, earning him great admiration from Butcher. Butcher's henchman, McGloin, disapproved of Valen's audacity, even in handling a corpse. Interestingly, McGloin turned out to be the trusted aide of Valen's father, the priest. In the face of this Irish traitor's insult, Valen stood his ground, and the two immediately prepared for a duel. Onlookers pressed in as Valen, who was originally no match for the experienced McGloin, seized the opportunity and locked onto him fiercely, almost tearing the other's mouth apart. It was this reckless tenacity that seemed to remind Butcher of his former self. He gained Butcher's full appreciation, and Butcher immediately picked up a fallen picture frame from the ground. Inside the frame was Valen's father. He couldn't understand why his father's murderer had kept his father's statue. From then on, Valen often accompanied Butcher, who taught him to see through the social situation, observe the flow of people in different classes, and imparted a jungle rule to him. Only by holding absolute power could one stand firm in adversity. Valen could see that although Butcher was ruthless, he genuinely despised the aristocratic police officers who brown-nosed the nobility and held in contempt the cunning politicians. At this moment, a remarkable gentleman approached from a distance, occasionally casting glances at Valen.
Hey, just want to see your face, son.
He recognized him as Monk, his father's top enforcer, but he couldn't acknowledge him at that moment. Valen quickly realized the sense of privilege that came from being under the protection of a powerful figure. It was during the time of the Civil War, and the following year the government mandated that immigrants must join the military or pay $300 for the impoverished. $300 was an astronomical sum. With Butcher's protection, Valen didn't have to pay or enlist. Furthermore, Butcher personally taught him his unique skills. Scenes flashing in his mind of his father teaching him similar lessons. With such a close relationship, even Johnny began to wonder whether Valen was there for revenge or to follow in the footsteps of the thief. Johnny fancied a female thief named Jenny, finding delight even when things were stolen. However, Valen could see that Jenny was uncontrollable. During a second encounter with Jenny alone, his medal, a keepsake from his father, was stolen. He had to retrieve it. Along the way, he witnessed Jenny's thievery firsthand twice. She was a genius pickpocket. If he could collaborate with her on the revenge plan, perhaps their chances of success would increase. Butcher, in collaboration with the politician Tweed, hanged 4 civilians to suppress the people's discontent towards the government, reminding Valen once again that Butcher was still a demon who valued lives. At night, it seemed as if people had already forgotten the daytime tragedy and were instead participating in a lively evening party. Jenny didn't choose Johnny, who had always liked her, but instead selected Valen as her dance partner. Her eyes were filled with stories. Perhaps thievery was just her means of survival in turbulent times. Valen was convinced he had found love, but at a critical moment, Jenny inadvertently revealed that her necklace was a gift from Butcher. It turned out she had been Butcher's woman all along, causing Valen's expression to change drastically. Despite his hatred for Butcher, Valen himself was conflicted. When the government banned underground boxing matches in the city, he moved Butcher's boxing market to the sea, giving Butcher a lucrative opportunity. In the crowd, Jenny ended up with Johnny, an obvious act of retaliation against Valen. Butcher took Valen to see a play mocking the Irish. Suddenly, an Irish assassin attempted to kill Butcher. Instinctively, Valen intervened, raising the gun slightly, ultimately saving Butcher's life. He then took the gun and shot the assassin. Butcher thanked him for saving his life, showing him the utmost respect. It was only then that Valen realized he had saved his father's killer, leading him to retreat to the bathroom and weep. Monk suddenly appeared, chastising Valen for ruining his plans. The assassin was sent by him. All these years, he had been seeking an opportunity to take out Butcher. That night, Butcher hosted a banquet for Valen. When he saw Jenny tending to Butcher wounds, he couldn't contain his jealousy. He forcibly took Jenny away, this time not minding her past. However, their intimacy was witnessed by Johnny, who had always secretly loved Jenny. The next day, awakening to find Butcher sitting on their bed, it was evident that he didn't blame Valen for a woman. Instead, he spoke earnestly about the priest he respected most. The priest had beaten him severely but spared his life, instructing him to live in disgrace. To show mutual respect for heroes, Butcher had his right eye gouged out and presented it to the priest, carving an eagle symbol of courage on the false eyeball. Seeing the same vigor in Valen as he had seen in the priest, Butcher intended to adopt Valen as his own son. After hearing these revelations, Valen was in turmoil. Jenny disclosed that Butcher had taken advantage of she at the age of 12 and that she had had an abortion. Experiencing all this, Valen started practicing his flying daggers, and he'd already set up a meeting with the Chinese gang to kill Butcher on the day of the sacrifice. At a crucial moment, Johnny unexpectedly betrayed them. Due to jealousy over his unrequited love interest Jenny being taken by Valen, Johnny voluntarily informed Butcher of Valen's revenge plan. Butcher, who had long had absolute faith in Valen, instantly fired up. Upon discovering the truth, Butcher did not tip his hand but instead pretended to angrily throw knives at Jenny before the memorial began, aiming to provoke Valen. At the commencement of the ceremony, Butcher lit the fire liquor, and everyone removed their hats. As the moment approached, his ally, Chinese gang, had been cleared out, indicating that the plan had been compromised. Ultimately, his plan was ruined by his own trusted brother. Butcher dragged Valen to a dark table, relentlessly but non-fatally headbutting him. Believing that Valen's covert assassination attempt reflected the spirit of a warrior akin to his father the priest, Butcher intended to mark Valen, just as the priest had spared him, forcing him to live in disgrace. Afterwards, Jenny carefully hid him in a cave. Aware that New York was no longer safe for Valen, she unearthed her savings accumulated over the years and decided to take him away from this sinful place. However, Valen, with his mission unfulfilled, refused to leave. Monk presented them with a relic from the priest, a razor symbolizing manhood. Together, they plotted their revenge. Valen hangs a dead rabbit in the center of town, announcing the return of the erstwhile Dead Rabbit gang to the entire 5 Points area. This act was a great humiliation for Butcher, who mobilized the police to personally assassinate Valen. When the police arrived at the former Dead Rabbit's cellar, Valen was already waiting for them. Facing this Irish traitor, he showed no mercy to the officers, hanging their bodies high, symbolizing the resistance of the lower class against the natives, the government, and the conscription agents. The oppressed populace and the former Irish brethren of the Dead Rabbits rose up, joining without hesitation in the fight, including Johnny, who had once betrayed him. Almost overnight, Valen became the only figure in the 5 Points area who could rival Butcher. Soon after, the first person Butcher targeted was a friend of Valen's, forcing Valen to bid farewell to his brother. The Tweed Party always went with the wind, leaning towards whoever had more support to gather more votes for themselves. Valen was well aware of their true colors, but saw this as an opportunity for the Dead Rabbits to rise again. He set a condition, demanding that Monk run for New York State Prosecutor. True to form, Monk's speech resonated with the people, overwhelmingly defeating the candidate backed by the natives. This almost signaled the collapse of the dark empire that Butcher had built single-handedly. Going against his own so-called warrior spirit, he covertly threw an axe at Monk, causing Valen to lose another key member. Monk's death intensified the gang hatred in the entire 5 Points area. With both sides amassing dozens of factions, they agreed to meet at dawn in the church square for a decisive battle, still honoring the knightly spirit by using only cold weapons. However, on the day of the showdown, a riot broke out in New York. The people could no longer tolerate the government's unfair conscription laws, storming the police station, smashing the mansions of the rich, with civilization and order crumbling under violence and bloodshed. On the other side, the natives and immigrant gangs had also assembled their forces, ready to clash. But before the battle commenced, a cannonball struck towards them. It turned out that the government had positioned warships to suppress the civilian unrest, with the members of the natives and immigrant gangs becoming mere cannon fodder. In the midst of thick fog, Valen and Butcher fiercely fought for their lives. As the smoke cleared, Butcher realized he had been hit in a vital spot by shrapnel. Seeing those around him being gunned down by the police, he knew that his fate was sealed. At the same time, he also took comfort in Valen becoming a formidable enemy like the priest, so he accepted everything. The riot lasted for 4 days and 4 nights before it was finally quelled, leaving New York City in ruins, marking the shocking 1863 conscription riot that shook the world. The death toll remained unmatched until the events of 9/11, with the irony being that those politicians, each clutching handkerchiefs, stared at the mass graves, but what they mourned was not life.
We're burying a lot of votes down here tonight.
But Valen killed Butcher, but he did not find the satisfaction of revenge and hatred. At the moment the cannonball struck, life vanished in an instant, rendering the enmity or friendship between the two sides seemingly unimportant. No matter how brave or powerful a person is, or how strong a gang might be, they cannot escape the fate of being cannon fodder. He buried Butcher's body alongside his father. Across the Hudson River lies the still smoldering New York City, a scene that director Martin Scorsese freezes on, this graveyard being America's verdant cemetery. As time marches on, the river is spanned by the Brooklyn Bridge, and tall buildings start to rise on the other side. The life and death grudges of those passionate and fiery years are but a speck of dust in the river of history. I am a movie enthusiast. Thank you for watching. Until next time.